And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, "Now is come salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our God day and night. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. And they loved not their lives unto the death." Revelation chapter 12, verses 10 and 11.
Welcome back to the channel. This is Anna's Thoughts and Musical Parodies, and I am Anna, your hostess. Thanks for being here today.
If you have not seen my latest design yet, this is it, and it goes right in line with today's topic. It's available through the second page of the website linked in the description. And FYI, there is also this Afterpay option where you break up the payment into 4 bi-weekly parts. Thank you so much in advance to anyone who decides to support, and now let's get all the way into today's video. So as the title says, this video is going to be about how PTSD and my suffering from that basically ultimately brought me back to Jesus, back to God. But first I'm going to talk a little bit about how spiritual warfare from Satan tried to thwart me from making this video today, and how Jesus came through and got me back on track. Full disclosure, as they say, I have been struggling up and down, sometimes more than other times, for a long time. Basically wondering if I should even continue on making videos, because, I would think that by this point, if people really enjoyed what I was doing and, if it was worth it, so to speak, that there would be a bigger audience. But anytime that I think about stopping, it's just depressing, and I did stop for like a month or more one time, and it was depressing. I felt like, I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing in life. But anyway, I was having those thoughts pretty strong today as I was just feeding my baby and, scrolling through YouTube, and saw all these other people who are doing so well. And, it's like, I've been at this for like 2.5 years. Why can't I get there? What am I doing so wrong? I'm probably not even supposed to do this. I should just stop. Blah, 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 blah. And, again, I thought about how it would be even more depressing to not even do it at all. So, I'll just continue on. But I don't know what the point really is. And then, just as I was having those thoughts, I went onto Instagram and noticed that my friend who does this channel, Truth Will Set You Free 777, had shared my latest video in his story. And he has like almost 4 times as many followers as me, so I thought, cool, that could actually help me out significantly and, get things rolling a little bit more. And it wasn't a total 180 in my mood, but it boosted it enough to make a significant difference for the positive. And so I thanked him for that and everything. And then when I went to change my baby's diaper, I turned on this playlist that I made to help relax. It's called Relax Already. I'll put it in the description in case anybody wants to check it out. And the first song that came on there, out of like however many, I forget, like I think close to 50 songs, was the song that really was helpful and meaningful to me during my, the thick of my recovery from PTSD, when I was really not doing well mentally and emotionally. That's the first song that came on, and it also relates to, feeling like I'm not good enough to keep going on with YouTube and all that. So that felt like God speaking to me, saying, don't be silly, I'm supposed to share my testimony anyway. So that was like God coming back through saying, don't give up, that was spiritual warfare, and I don't want you to lose the fight. So that was pretty awesome. I really love it when God speaks to me like that. He knows that I love music, so that's the way that he often does it. So let's get into it, shall we? You could really say that the story began when I was in high school, but I covered that aspect of it in my video that I made on February 2nd of 2022, if you want to check that out. But today I'm just going to start from when I left the terribly abusive relationship that I was in for about 10 years. And this was in January of 2015. And I won't go into all of the gory details here, but I will just say that the closest comparisons to what I went through that I have heard are stories of people in internment camps in North Korea, although that's probably a little bit worse, and the women who were abused by Marilyn Manson. I've heard at least one or two of their stories, and that was really the closest thing to my experience that I've ever heard. So if you're familiar with either of those things, that's somewhat of what it was like. And so, yeah, I was basically like a prisoner for at least a good 7 years of the time, because there were a couple phases here and there when the abuse was less, and I've learned since that that's like a cycle that abusers go through, are periods of lightening up in order to kind of convince the person not to leave them, you know, to give them a false sense of hope, I guess. And so I guess that was what made it difficult. That's part of what made it difficult to leave for good sooner than 10 years, because there were like 3 times I think that I did leave and intend to stay away, but he ended up sucking me back in. I was also just very brainwashed. I believed that nobody else would really want me to live with them, or, you know, want to be around me, because he literally told me if anybody else knew the real you, they wouldn't like you. So yeah. Anyway, in January of 2015, I finally was convinced to leave him. It was my older sister who said something that flipped a switch in my brain. She asked, you know, imagine our younger sister experiencing what you did. And once I thought about that, I would like suddenly realize, wow, that's really not okay. I really should never go back, because I was at my younger sister's house for my dad's birthday, and I was going to go back the same day, but I was just decided to stay. So that was a huge blessing to have my sisters to help get me out. But so then it was interesting, because I had gone from being, you know, really a prisoner who was expected to ask to go to the bathroom, to eat anything, was told what clothes to wear, etc., to being an adult, you know, with freedom, you know, like a normal adult, because this abusive relationship had begun when I was 17 and I moved in with him when I was 20. So I only had like 2 years or so, you know, about 2 years of being a free adult before that. And then when I got out in 2015, I was 27. So yeah, 7 years of being trapped with him. And so I really started to revel in that freedom and took it to the extreme, because I felt like I needed to take back all the years that I had lost. So I ended up getting drunk, smoking weed, and being very promiscuous as much as I possibly could. I was pretty much high every day for a good few months. And I was living with my younger sister, and she had a son who was like, I think around 5 years old at that time. And so needless to say, after a few months of me being like that every day, living with her, she decided that it wasn't going to work out and gave me 30 days to find somewhere else to live. And at that time I felt very betrayed by her. You know, I thought, how could my own family do this to me? How could they reject me? You know, how could they kick me out of their home, the home that I'm living in after I was, you know, rescued from all of this torture and abuse? But I see it differently now. I was also into paganism at that time, so I had some oracle cards, which are like for fortune telling, these goddess cards, and I would pray to the goddesses and use them sometimes at her house, and she kept telling me she didn't want me to do that, and I would just argue about it, you know, because she was a Christian. She's been a Christian her whole life, And so I would argue, you have your spiritual practice, you do it every day, why can't I do mine? Like, well, that's not fair. I'm guessing now it was probably another part of, like, I've been told what to do for the last 7 years by somebody who should be my equal, don't tell me what to do type of thing. Like, I'm paying rent here, that type of thing. And so, yeah, she gave me 30 days to leave, and like right when that happened, I got this severe anxiety over me. I stopped being able to sleep very well. It greatly disrupted my work life. It got a lot harder to do my job. I became very reclusive. I just felt annoyed all the time. And, so that spiraled into depression as well. And I kept thinking, this will pass. It's just a temporary thing, but it just kept going on and on for weeks that turned into months. The place I ended up going to was living with this guy I had been dating for like a couple weeks. So that was a really bad choice, obviously. And we ended up living in his mom's garage, and there were rats in the house. So that didn't help my mental state. Neither did the fact that he ended up having anger issues. And he wasn't abusive like the other guy, but he just wasn't always very nice. And we were just getting high all the time. I was calling out of work a lot because I wasn't sleeping, even though I was getting high. Like, it didn't even affect me anymore after a while. And so I would get drunk to try to go to sleep. It was really bad. And eventually I started thinking I might need to break up with him, and that added another layer of stress to my life. And so there was this one day that I actually broke down at work and started crying. Might have had a panic attack, I forget. On the bright side, a lot of people who I didn't even know very well were very supportive and kind of stopped what they were doing to try to help me through it, so that was cool. And I don't know what I would have done without them, honestly. But shortly after that, I think it was shortly after that I had a day that I don't even know if I woke up because I wasn't really sleeping. But I got up in the morning and decided that it was the time to no longer be alive. And I had a certain way that I was going to do it, that I looked it up on the internet to see if it was going to work. And I found out that it was one of the least effective options. So I felt bummed out about that, but it saved my life. Well, it saved me from doing it. But, I realized how low I had gone, how far gone I was from where I should be mentally and emotionally. So I ended up calling all of my family members and basically just crying out for help. Not too long after that, I broke up with the guy and moved in with my parents, and quit my job shortly after that because I felt like I just couldn't even handle it anymore. Maybe I could have, I'm not sure. But yeah, that turned into a different kind of stressful situation because my parents weren't really getting along, and that affected me as well. I started getting into a mental health program, which did help, but I was convinced by somebody close to me to not get on medication, which would have been what I needed to do in order to get disability money. And my financial situation was one of the biggest things stressing me out, causing me anxiety and depression. And so since I ended up not being able to get money, that didn't help. So I was in a really bad spot. I felt like I didn't want to be alive a lot of the time. Somewhere during this time, I think around the beginning of this time that I was living with my parents, I was seeing a psychologist, I believe it was, who was a trauma specialist, and she told me that I had PTSD, so that's where I got that diagnosis from. And then there was one day where I was convinced by my parents to come along to church with them, just to get out of the house and be around people to see if it would help my mental state. And it seems like it kind of did. I could see that those people they seemed kinder and happier overall to me than the average person who I would interact with in life. And so I thought that was pretty interesting. Because, I had been raised Christian, but for a long time, over the past 10-ish years, I started thinking that, it was too close-minded. It didn't really make sense, and I wanted to do anything but that. Like, I believed that there was a higher power, but I thought I wasn't cool with it being Jesus, basically. Not that really makes sense, that I can decide who God is, but I was desperate to find God. And so I don't know if it was the first time I went back to church or like the second or third time, but they were talking about the book of Revelation and the tribulation that would occur, and how people could end up in hell if they didn't accept the salvation of Jesus. And I didn't want that to happen if it was real. And also they were talking about how they had peace in their lives on a regular basis. Even if they were going through hard times, they could still experience peace. And so I knew I didn't want the tribulation or hell, and I needed peace in my life. And so I decided that I needed to give Jesus a chance again. And so around like the end of the Bible study, I was like, why aren't you asking me if I want to do this? Why aren't you asking me if I want to accept Jesus like you guys? As I guess I just kind of expected them to have an altar call every time, especially since they knew that I wasn't saved, because I let them all know that I was just there to get out of the house, that I wasn't into this stuff. So like, oh, you want to? I was like, yeah, I think I should. And so I did. And that night I went home and I felt joy, like they were talking about, for the first time in probably like a year and a half or something. And it was just truly supernatural, because like I said, I had been feeling like I didn't want to be alive for a long time. And it was kind of a night and day difference. I was excited to be able to pray even for my abuser. So that's basically how the desperation of experiencing PTSD and just utter despair and desperation to feel like a normal human being again and feel like I had hope to be able to look forward to the future led me to getting to the end of my rope, to the point where I was willing to give God a chance again. And I'm so glad that I did, because that first night was better, and then I just started feeling hopeful again, even though it was still really hard for a while. And the rest is history. I would never go back. Thanks for watching. Please share this around to other people who could use to see it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye. Thank you again so much for being here today. Since you liked the video enough to make it all the way to the end, don't forget to click the thumbs up and share with somebody else who would also find it interesting. Leave your comments below and we'll all have a conversation. If you really liked it, check out the link in the description for several different ways that you can support. Have a wonderful night, afternoon, morning, evening, whatever time zone you are in.